Welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, episode number 307. My name is Brando, and it is Monday night where I am. And I always have to make sure if I speak to any of my mates in Australia, like I have to confirm the day and the time because it's just you guys live in a different world. Andrew Stockdale, you're in Australia right now, correct?
We live on the other side of the world.
Yes, yes, you do. It's I always have to make sure. I mean, I have it just with East Coast and West Coast with a 3 hour difference. People get that wrong. So I'm
Yeah.
glad you're taking time at the beginning of your Tuesday or midday Tuesday to speak with me.
It's amazing, isn't it, that you can do this now? Like the world's gotten smaller and
It has, and I guess it kind of lends itself to this conversation because the world got smaller real quick in 2020, and thankfully, you guys released an album just before Armageddon hit. Right, that was the last. That was the last Wolfmother effort. It was right before the pandemic. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah. It was what was it called? Rock and Roll Baby.
Yeah.
Um yeah, it was put out just on New Year's Eve um in 2019. And yeah, recorded two songs at Dave Grohl's studio, two songs at a local band studio in Brisbane, and one song at a studio here in Byron Bay. And yeah, so I was just sort of like hopping around all these different studios, um, trying different places, different energy, get inspired by different people. And yeah.
Thankfully, it was at a time where you were able to do that. You didn't have to do COVID protocols or wear a mask before going into each one. So I guess before we get
Yeah.
into what you have, going on in the future, I have a lot of
Yeah.
listeners from Australia. Things are different down there. I'm not talking about the giant spiders and kangaroos. I'm talking about with COVID and everything. Like, are you
Yeah.
still in lockdown? Like, how is it? Are you okay? Is the
Uh,
family okay?
we can't trash trash places. No, we can't travel internationally. That's the biggest restriction, I think. There's no country in the world that has, even dictatorships, and haven't banned international travel. But yeah, so we've had that in place for almost 2 years, which I think is coming to an end in the next couple of weeks. We can't. So Queensland, which is like 20 kilometers away from where I am, I'm on the border. I'm in Byron Bay, and I can't go to Queensland, but in like a week I'll be able to go to Paris.
I mean,
So yeah, we're in. You got some states that want to do they shut down their borders, and then other parts that do lockdown. But yeah, we were in lockdown for about 2 weeks because someone came up from Sydney with COVID, and then everyone freaked out. And that it's different to the States where you've got like, hundreds of thousands. I don't know how many people have got COVID. It's just everywhere, isn't it? You just got it.
it depends on, I guess, what state you're in. I guess there's a lot in Florida, but here in New York we got pretty good. I think I may have
Yeah.
got COVID in January, so maybe I got COVID from the new Wolfmother album after I listened to it the first time. It was before it was before like COVID was a thing. I just thought I got the flu, and I never get the flu, so that was in itself was very rare.
So you
But
got tested.
never got tested, but I got vaccines. I guess I don't know. At that point, I got sick. I was working from home. I'm like, I wasn't working around people. I didn't
Yeah.
need anything shoved up my nose. My
Yeah.
my fiance works with little kids, so she had to get tested and get swabbed up the
Yeah.
nose. But I avoided that, thankfully. But
Yeah.
I guess how are you been handling when you are in the downtime, when you are in lockdown? Are you focusing on music? Are you binge watching stuff? Like, how are you staying creative when you have these lapses in your career?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, initially I was like, oh wow, like I don't have to do anything. Like, just um because like my life for the last 18 years has been like, tours and then a month off and then tours and then a month. So I'm always kind of like, oh, I just got back from somewhere on the other side of the world. In Australia, it's like, 20-hour flight. So I was kind of, initially I was like relieved because I think I subconsciously wanted to stop touring, but I didn't have the guts to say it to a booking agent because I thought if I say I don't want to tour, then they won't book me in the future. Because you've got to be the rock warrior and freaking put your life on the line and say yes to every tour and be grateful to have the best job in the face of the earth. But yeah, for a little while it was good, but you start to get the itch after a bit of time off when you see like other bands on tour on Instagram. You're like, oh man, I'm missing out. Yeah, like,
That
but
makes that makes sense because that's what I would always ask to some of these musicians that are just constantly on the road. I'm like,
yeah,
isn't it kind of like a blessing in disguise, or you get to do nothing? And
yeah,
you're right, but as a lot of people do, even me, who I love doing nothing, there comes to a
yeah.
point where it's like I got to do something. I got to get out there. So, what was the first inspiration? Did you want to start? As we're talking on Zoom, did you want to start doing Zoom shows, or like, how did you want to start attacking it, or you're just looking for the first live show that you could possibly do?
Well, I started doing all these covers. Initially, I probably learned like 30 covers, and I did that on Instagram for a while. And then we did a live show on a rooftop for a Mexican festival. So I just found this rooftop and we used drones, and we were on like the 30th floor of this building with drones going around, and we recorded it. And it sort of it changed my way of thinking in that, like, I mean, I'm like a early 2000s band, you know what I mean? Like, so I'm like used to like, you know, all that stuff's done for you. You know what I mean? You rock up to a TV station, the cameras are in place. You can have a couple of drinks, get on there, play Woman for the thousandth time, and that's it. And they go, "That's great." You walk out. But now it's like, oh, you've got to arrange a sound engineer. You got to get 5 cameras. You got to book the lights. You got to book the location, and then we're going to edit it, and then we're going to like so. It sort of forced me to like lift my game a little bit in just being organized. And I think you've probably seen that like online, that like some of these bands are like tech savvy and have really like done really well during this time, and others are just like kind of just gone quiet waiting for things to go back to normal, and that hasn't happened. But yeah, I mean, um it's forced me to just like not be like, I don't have to do anything, I'm going to wait till the next tour.
So what have you? I think that's awesome because part of me was like that too. When I normally normally in New York City working at iHeartRadio in Tribeca, and that's where I would do these podcasts or have my real radio job in a studio.
Yeah,
And I get sent home, and now I have a board here, and I'm like, do I continue the podcast from home? That seems so cheesy, but you see all these
yeah,
other shows continuing or bands continuing, so I'm making the parallel here.
yeah,
So I'm learning. We've all learned a lot about ourselves during this time. How to stay creative, how to push yourself. So what have you
yeah.
learned, I guess, about yourself? Have you found? I've used this analogy.
Hmm.
You have a crayon box, and you have all the different crayons in your box, but
Yeah,
you may not use them all. You may not know some are even there. Have you learned any?
yeah,
You found any other crayons in your box that you weren't aware of before the
yeah.
pandemic? Anything new that you learned about yourself?
Yeah. Well, I mean, usually if I was working on a record at home or something, I'd be like, I'm going to LA, I'm going to finish off this record at the best studio, like Henson Studios, and they're going to sort it out. And, I'll just take my hard drive over and I'm like, oh, you can't do that. Like, you're going to have to sort this out yourself. You're going to have to Dropbox. You're going to have to learn how to use Dropbox. You're going to have to get the passwords. You're going to have to upload the stems. I don't even know what stems are. You have to get Pro Tools on my laptop. I don't know the part. Like I've literally spent days just looking for passwords and learning, and just like like a whole day learning how to bounce a session. And like, people go, dude, I don't know how to bounce a freaking like a Pro Tool session. That took me 5 hours to do that. I'm embarrassed to say so, but yeah. So that's, if you're talking about the crayon box, it's like my weakness is technical stuff, and I think the world has allowed us to run away from our weaknesses and just let other people pick up the pieces, and that's how we work together, and that's how we accomplish like great things. But now it's like, you know, you're gonna have to work that out yourself. You're gonna have to, and yeah, this, I mean, I've made another record. I've just finished recording a whole, which I'm really happy with. I think the songwriting is really strong. The riffs are strong. The arrangements are tight. Everything, and I've recorded it in this space here. And I've used local musicians. Usually I'd fly in someone from Sydney or something, like from other places. Now I'm using everyone locally. So, yeah, it's kind of forced me to be more resourceful, and yeah, and I think we've done a good job. Yeah.
And that's gonna
Um,
come out in the because I the last thing I read was that you had a lot of songs written for the new album. So as this downtime, time of learning, trying to remember all your passwords, did that make making this record more or less challenging than previous Wolfmother records? Yeah, with the technology, was it maybe it slowed you down a little bit, but was it easier, perhaps?
and I'm from like the school of like, I guess, I've been around for a little while now. So like, I've never seen, when we recorded the first record, like I've never seen those sessions. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I would like record, I mean, I would record something, say it, I would record something and not even ask for the session. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
I would pay for the studio and then just walk out. And then it's like, oh, someone better go back and get that. I think I'm exposing myself, but hey, that's what it's about. I don't really, I just,
You're rock stars. They're just like us. I think that's you're showing that you were given this talent, this musical talent, and it's
yeah,
like you're almost doing a live performance when you're going into record. And I'm like,
yeah,
okay, I came in, I performed, I'm gone. It was almost the
yeah,
same thing for me for a while. I like being on air, but I gotta
yeah,
learn how to edit. I gotta learn how to produce and production, all these different things, kind of
yeah.
DIY. So I'm sure there are a lot of people just like you, maybe not on your level, as
Uh,
but
but
it's nothing to
I
be
think,
embarrassed about for sure. Definitely
yeah,
not.
I mean, I have like the level of attention to detail now is off the scale. Like, I mean, I've gone to Sydney International Airport on a 9-week tour, and I don't have an itinerary. I don't know where I'm going. Like, and I just take my passport and go, hey, it's freaking 30 shows, and that's it. That's all I know. And I think that's what it that's what it takes to make it, is to like switch off and just trust in the process and go for it. Whereas now, I guess, like, the mindset has shifted to like, I should know everything, I should book everything, I should check the, this and that and this, and it's more detailed. And I think people have become more detail orientated. And I don't know if that's exactly what people wanted from rock and roll in the first place, or from bands, if they wanted that kind of, I mean, they want like an experience. They want you to give everything. They want a great performance. They want freaking amazing songs and amazing sounds, and so yeah.
What did it affect your songwriting at all? Like how you said you were very proud of this record. So I guess Can you tell us without giving anything
Look
away?
at Guns N' Roses. I mean, you're wearing a Guns N' Roses. It's like, didn't they spend their advance on like heroin or something?
That
They got
might not
their
be all.
recording advance.
Well, I'm sure, as you know, this is appetite for Distortion. So we're gonna get into the GNR stuff. I think there was a story I heard from my former manager Alan Niven that like Izzy had to give him the check that he got. Izzy
Yeah,
gave him the check just so he wouldn't spend it on heroin. He's like, I know I'm going to spend
yeah.
it.
I mean, we've all grown up with these like stories of just complete dysfunctionality in rock bands, and they still make it. It's like Oasis with that gig at the Roxy where they're all given different set lists, and they were all so wasted, and they were playing different songs, and it was a disaster, but they still made it because the energy, like but I feel like now that's over. That's gone. Now it's like, you need your passwords for Dropbox to get your song mastered to get onto Spotify, and you got to know how to do the playlist. And if you don't know that, then you're just like, you're done. You gotta. It's like, I think the new version of the so-called rock star or the podcaster or I mean, you've got to be more well equipped, I think, to contend, which is great. It's good. I think we need maybe the whole thing needed a kick up the ass. Maybe we needed to like lift our game and sort of be more creative and more resourceful.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there are all the millions of people that died, which is terrible. But I've said,
Mm.
me personally, it's been a blessing in disguise because I've learned a lot about myself. And, thankfully I can work from home and I have this, with my regular job, and I have this podcast to connect me with fans all over the world. So for me, it was a blessing. And so that's
Yeah.
why I always like getting perspectives from people like you, and with musicians in general, it's just such a hard, difficult business in overall. And then to have
Yeah.
your world shrunk, and now even where it's still shrunk, where you can't leave the country,
Mm.
it's good to see that you're still. I'm getting a positive vibe off you, and that
Oh,
you're
I'm
you're
glad to hear. Yeah.
and you're creating and you're creating new music. So I think
Yeah.
it's just I think it's just fantastic what you've been able to do with it. So I mean, that's all you can do. It was a terrible situation, obviously, and
Yeah.
you make the best of it. And that seems like
Yeah.
exactly what you're doing, passwords included.
I mean, we've done gigs where like we're all packed up. We played the gig last night. We're leaving, and you're halfway to the next gig, and you go to the tour manager. You go, "Oh, did you get paid for that? Did you talk to the venue?" And they go, "Oh shit. Okay, turn around. We forgot to even get paid for the gig." Like, I mean, that's how loose. You know,
It
a
used to
bunch
be.
of guys in a van playing every night. That's how loose it can be. But um,
Do you feel restricted now, maybe a little bit, that it's not as loose, or you just understand that's just the way it is now?
uh, well, it's like when you arrive at a country and you like get your passport out, you're going through customs. If you got the visa, and you kind of got that nervous energy, and everyone's like queuing up, and you're like, "Yep, I'm here to like do that." It's like now that's like going to the cafe is like that. It's like, "Whoop, yep, got my QR code, I got my pass, and I got the mask, and and you just like, someone's watching. Have they done the right? So it's like, yeah, I mean, you got to, yeah, there is a element of
Adjustment.
you being, people are aware of every move, but I mean, I remember when we used to tour in the States, like in the early days, and like we'd go to LA and play, Coachella. You come back here, and if you said, "Oh, we just played Coachella," I'd be like, "What's Coachella?" What's but and then over 10 years, or 18 years, now you've got Instagrammers going, "We've just bought our tickets to Coachella, we're flying over, we're going to spend 3 days in Vegas." And you're like, holy cow. Like, we've sort of become accustomed to having the world as our like at our doorstep, you know, and um, yeah, and that's been taken away from us, I guess, to an extent. But I mean, yeah, so yeah,
To an
everything's
extent,
changed, you know, like
to an extent, but I think that's sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but you're still doing shows in Australia.
yeah,
So you're still getting out there, seeing people face to face. It's just constricted. So what have the shows been like, you know, down under us, as we
yeah,
Americans say?
yeah. Well, we just played on Saturday night, I think, yeah, which was 2 nights ago, and it's freaking young crowd, hey. Like it was like 18 to 25-year-olds, and I don't know if that's like the new demographic of people who have got the guts to go out to a concert. 'Cause they feel like they're not in the high risk category, but I don't know, maybe the audiences have gotten younger, or the punters are a bit younger, and the I don't know, the
The pun
middle aged and older people are staying at home. I don't know what's going on, but I haven't kind of been out enough on the road to see what. But in the States, are you finding like are all age demographics like out and about, or are people kind of
All
still a
right.
bit nervous? Or
Here's a good transition. For one, you have to clarify what punters mean. Is that what you said? Is that
people who go to gigs, I guess.
okay?
Yeah,
That's what I love doing this podcast, is talking to people
yeah,
around the world, things I don't know. I
yeah,
barely
yeah,
speak the language of punters. Yeah, I've been to, as you see my shirt and in the
yeah,
podcast. So I've been to 3 Guns N' Roses shows since the
yeah,
pandemic. We went to Hershey Park, Pennsylvania. I say we, me, my fiance, not just the voices in my head, but so we
yeah,
went to Hershey Park, New Jersey, and Baltimore. And
yeah,
the ages were everywhere. It was from little
yeah,
kids to, old rockers that are still holding
yeah,
on to their long hair with their bald spot. So,
yeah,
but it also depends on where you go. There are certain states that are more strict. Uh,
mm,
they are strict now here in New York, that you have to wear a
mm,
mask to go to dine inside. But we
mm,
went to Arizona this summer, and it's like COVID never happened.
yeah,
So it depends, I guess. But
yeah,
what's great though, because yeah, concerts are an escape. That's a sense of normalcy, even with the
yeah,
mask. Whatever, it's you're still out with people. But is
yeah.
to hear new music, is to get new music. So that's why I'm excited and to get this update from you. So where are you in the process of new Wolfmother, and how we can consume it wherever we
Yeah,
are?
yeah. Well, um, I just spoke to a label last night. I mean, I'm going to license it to a label. Like the last one I just put out independently, and yeah, I mean, I like that. I like putting out music more consistently, because the means of distribution are pretty amazing. Like these days, like you don't need to like pack up a boat with CDs and ship it off and put it in the shelves and
Right.
and pre-order 300,000. Oh, they've sent back 200,000 CDs of because nobody at Tower Records likes the new single. It's like, those days are gone. And I mean, yeah. So yeah, it's hard to say what's going on in the land of record labels and what they can do for you, but I'm sure they can. The press and I mean, look at us talking now. It's like even like on Cosmic Egg, like we did a worldwide tour, a press tour, like before the record came out. Meeting with all the press in New York, um, and then came back and did a tour like 3 months later. You just kind of wonder, like, I mean, how like that's all changed now, like really, like
Right. Exactly. I mean, if this was a year ago, we probably would have just spoke on the phone. I wouldn't be able to see the studio where you're recording the new Wolf Mother. But where are you with the now? You said you're going to the labels, but is the album, is your part of it done?
Yeah, yeah, it's mixed and mastered, and yeah. So I mean, I could upload it right now after this interview, and
You don't know the password. You don't know the
yeah,
password.
yeah, yeah. But this record, I think, like the first song is like a sort of, it's got a bit of, English and American. It's almost like the first song is like Deep Purple English kind of, boogie rock kind of thing, and then the next one is like, an ode to Kiss with Detroit Rock City and Paul Stanley frontman banter, like
Huh.
that kind of thing. And then there's a bit of a David Lee Roth frontman kind of thing on the next one. And so I sort of, um, I've got, and then there's like a depressing, introspective Aussie kind of, you know, well, not depressing, but sort of like, yeah, that kind of, how would you describe it? Reflective,
Yeah, introspective, something like you're thinking.
angsty, reflective, and that kind of adolescent angst,
I
for
like it.
lack of a better way of putting it. So I think I just have gone through all of the greatest frontmen of rock and roll from the States and the UK, and I've just tried to, like, as a fan of rock and roll myself, I like to pretend to like be like them, and then I find my own voice and my own persona through trying to be, but not trying to be someone else, but like, getting inspired by other frontmen, so
I dig it.
uh and you look at these artists and like they say that they're like, I'm not going to name names, but they say inspired by Howling Wolf, and it's like, come on, dude, like, you're doing Robert Plant, okay? That's that. So it's like, just, show some respect,
I, I
Um,
I appreciate that, and I love when my favorite musicians are fans themselves. So since you
yeah.
mentioned David Lee Roth, let me ask, what do you think about him retiring? He's doing these last few dates in Vegas, and that's it for Diamond Dave. Did you get to see
Um,
Van Halen back in the day? Do you have any Van Halen, David Lee Roth stories? Any, or just share your fandom of Diamond Dave?
uh, well, I mean, it's like, yes, announcing your retirement, is that allowed in rock and roll? Like,
You
are
said
you
something
married?
similar about Kiss, which I want to ask because you're opening for Kiss too. So just
Yeah,
the
yeah.
same answer. I'm wondering.
I mean, you're supposed to, it's like, no, that guy freaking died. It's like Eddie Van Halen died. That's definitive. Like, where if you're a rock guy, it's like there's no need to retire from anything. Maybe you're over it and you've had enough, and you don't want to do it, and you don't want to go on, you don't want to be on the stage, but you could still do it. Like, if you change your mind in
Right.
3 months' time, if you're going through a bad stage and you're like, just going through it, you go, I'm over this. I don't want to see a band again. I don't want to see any of this. Like, I'm sure everyone goes through that with whatever they're doing, and they go, that's it. But you go, but hey, man, like, next year when the sun comes out and there's some, get offered some great fee to play freaking Jump.
Right.
Like, who knows? Like,
You're
how
right.
seriously do you take retirement from a singer? Like, I mean, it's not,
Well,
yeah.
let me ask then, how did the Kiss thing come about? Because they've retired several times. Do you believe that's going to happen? Do you believe 2022 is going to be it for them? That you are going to be a part of their final shows, their final shows? So they say.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, the work ethic of Kiss is like pretty impressive, you know. I mean, they've been playing shows since before I was born. So, I mean,
Me too.
you got to take your hat off to that, you know. And uh, yeah, I mean, I know Gene Simmons has said that, like, oh, you know, you don't want to be an embarrassment to yourself on the stage. You got to know when to pull the pin and when to get off. But I mean, it seems good to me. It's not like this is getting. I mean, I've played it in Chicago at Riot Festival with Jerry Lee Lewis, like headlining, and he's like in his 80s and he's amazing. Or, you know, you've got I don't know, I just think with music, rock and roll, you know, you look at Bob Dylan muttering away, like growling and in his own rearranging songs, changing the key, just going blowing in the wind. You know, he's still standing there with 12,000 people going, that's Bob Dylan. That is freaking cool. Like I don't know. Like I think artistic license, you know. I would just personally, you know, like you never know how you feel. Like you never know how you're gonna feel a year down the track. So yeah.
Is that the goal for you to be in your 80s singing Joker and the Thief? Is that the goal?
Why not? You know, why not? Yeah, actually, yes. Like I would like to challenge um the the preconception of like deteriorating rock star. Like, I mean, why not just be like good at 80? Why not fucking stay fit and actually, you know, do a great show when you're that age? Like, why, you know, it's all kind of very like defeatist, poor me sort of, you know, I don't know. It's just, yeah, you know, like, are you gonna quit being a podcaster? Or, you know, I'm sure you've had your fair share of good and challenges and good and bad things, but you know, you want to see people like, you know, continue to do what they love and not kind of self-impose any kind of limitations on themselves. Yeah. And
I
I'm sure David Lee Roth loves being David Lee Roth at the end of the day. Come on.
of course he does. I can see him walking into like the grocery store like he does. Like, hey, look at all the ladies here tonight. While he's walking down like the frosted food aisle. So I mean, I hope it's not it for him, but it's cool that you were inspired, you know, by him and by Ozzy on and these legends on this. It's making me really, I'm really intrigued to hear this new Wolfmother. So
Yeah, yeah,
hurry up
yeah,
already. When is it coming out?
yeah,
Do you have any
yeah.
ideas when it might come out?
Well, that's a good question. I should have asked. Yeah, I mean, I've spoken to some labels and I'm like, how long would it take you to set up the record? And they're like, we can put it out in 5 days. Because you know, I finished Victorious. Like I had the demos for that, then we waited for the producer probably like 5 months, and then it was done in 3 months. And then they were like, oh, we're gonna put it out in 8 months. You go, wow, that's like, man, that's gone from like that's a long stretch of time. So yeah, setup for a record isn't as long as it used to be, you know, and you don't have to like. I mean, are we all like basing it around making a hoodie and a t-shirt and a vinyl and making a bundle for? I mean, isn't that getting a bit obvious as well?
Well, how about like when do you think we can hear like a single? Like when do you think a single would come out? Like this year, like, next year, you think? Or
Oh, it's got to be. Yeah, it's got to be this year. It's got
oh,
to
this
be.
year?
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah,
All right, that's a good enough. This year is almost over, so that's a fine enough of an answer. I like it.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Cool. Then I got to ask because I like that you said I'm always preaching about the aging rock star, and since
yeah.
I think I'm only a how old are you if you don't mind me asking? I didn't do all of my research.
45.
All right, so I just turned 38, so I'm only a few years younger than you.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm gonna hold you to I'm gonna see you Wolfmother when you're 80. I'm gonna hold you
yeah.
to. But I'm always talking about the aging rock star because, as you could tell, I do a GNR podcast, and it bothers me when people, you know, and this is you and Slash as I'm bringing
Yeah.
up. new
Yeah.
background to my Zoom portion of the interview. And it
Yeah.
bothers me when people are like, "Oh, Axel doesn't sound like he does in his 20s," or "David Lee Roth doesn't sound like the same." Dude, it's still Axel. It's still David Lee Roth. It's still Paul Stanley. Just to go
Yeah.
there, I think
Yeah.
it's incredible. So, before I maybe asking your opinions
Yeah.
about as a vocalist, GNR, uh, you had one of my favorite songs on Slash's first solo record,
Mhm.
"By the Sword." Can you guys talk about how that came about and working with Slash on that record?
Yeah. Well, I was well, as you probably can remember, uh the other two guys in the band like quit. Yeah. So I was just like, sold millions of records and toured the world, won a Grammy, played the biggest played Coachella, Isle of Wight, Donington, Rock am Ring, had like life-changing experience. And then I get to the end of it all with a moment to like relax, and it's like, oh, we quit. Yeah. And I'm like, then I get an email saying, do you want to do a song with Slash? And I think that's, that's like, that's like, validation outside of Wolfmother, you know what I mean? That like a freaking iconic rock, guy, star has approached me to do this thing. So I should do this thing, man. I gotta like, um, make a statement outside of Wolfmother and kind of, embrace this opportunity. But there was a little bit of hesitation from the powers that be, and I kind of, I don't know what happens, but sometimes things like slip through the cracks. You know what I mean? Like when you've got labels and managers and things, opportunities come along, and they like the wires get crossed, and things kind of fall by the wayside. And it's like, call back, say yes, I'll be there. Let's make this happen. And so we went over. I think we were touring with AC/DC at the time. Uh, the biggest tour in Australian history, might I add. 1 in 4 people in Australia were at this on that tour.
Wow.
We did 5 nights in a row at Etihad Stadium in Melbourne, which is 50,000 people a night. So I finished that tour with AC/DC, flew straight over to LA. Oh, hang on. No, that was that. Now I'm talking about the release. No, that was.
That's a
No, actually, we did the song before that AC/DC tour, but he chose it to be the single whilst I was on tour with AC/DC. Um, uh, so yeah, I was making Cosmic Egg, which was the second record, put together another band, wrote another record, and then we were recording like 6 days a week or 5 days a week in LA. Then on Sunday, on my day off, I'd go over and see, jam through the song with Slash. We were playing acoustic. Like we actually went through By the Sword on the acoustic, which I think is a great way to sort of like tighten it up and do the arrangements and get the lyrics happening, get a good chorus. And when you play it on the acoustic, you're like, oh, this is a good song. Or so I think that set the foundation for like a good song, you know what I mean?
Had you met before, you and Slash, before this?
No,
And he just called. He obviously liked your voice and wanted to work with you, and just made it happen.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So yeah, we just sort of played on the acoustic. I think at the time, like, I mean, I don't drink now. I haven't had a drink for almost 3 years, but like before I'd go into
5 years for me, or 6 years, I
oh
think.
wow,
Yeah. So yeah,
awesome. Wow, 5 years. That's a good effort. Good you worked it out once you're younger too.
yeah. I had to. Thankfully, I was in therapy. That my therapist is like, you stop drinking, go to AA, or I'm not going to see you anymore. And
Oh,
I'm like, I will really want to see my therapist. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Well,
I haven't seen
I'm
it.
proud of you too. I'm proud of you.
Yeah, yeah.
It's hard. It's hard.
Yeah,
Especially being in your field. I mean, I can't even imagine when it's around you all the time, I'm sure.
yeah. Well, I probably just got a caffeine addiction now.
It's kind of what I say. Like you trade
Yeah,
one addiction for another, but you take the
yeah,
lesser of evils. That's okay. That's okay. I
yeah.
forgive you for that. So how did the lyrics, I guess, come out? He came to you with the music and you were inspired to write by the sword? Like where was that song within you?
Um, hmm. The lyrics, well, I was, yeah, it's funny. I just like, just, I was renting, Adam Levine's house from Maroon 5 up in, somewhere, I think it was the old Hollywood area of LA. Um, and he had a guitar up on the wall, and I was just sort of like, man, I think I was like having breakfast in the kitchen, and I just literally like wrote down the lyrics like before I went in to play with Slash that night. Like, um, yeah, I'm not trying to like talk it down or anything, but it just I didn't even put honestly didn't put that much effort into it. I just like wrote it on a piece of paper, went through the song and met up that night, and then just that was it. But sometimes with songwriting, effort doesn't equal outcome. You can put in a lot of effort and get a song that you're just going to delete, and then you can have these amazing moments where you like write it on the spot, and it's like, wow, that's the next hit, and just put that one out. So you just got to keep chipping away and hoping that's going to happen. But you just got to be ruthless with yourself, I think, and just be like, I know I put heaps of effort into that and that, and I'd put no effort into that, but that's a better song.
Huh. Interesting. You mentioned also, because I don't want to keep you here forever, because I know you're obviously a very busy dude.
Yeah.
You mentioned ACDC. What did you think of Axl Rose fronting ACDC? How did you think that worked together?
Um. Well. Oh yeah. I think yeah. It's great. Yeah. It's good to As you know, I've had a few different people in the band, and so I know what it's like to like go, far out. Like this dude's like not going to do this tour, and we've like made our sound around this, and how's this going to work? And then someone comes along, and you're like, we can still do this. Like, like you sort of go through this like horrible stage, and then you just stay and go, this is still working. And you get this moment like, like it's kind of sad to see someone go, but then it's like it's empowering to be like, far out, like we can keep the show on the road as well. It's sort of empower. So I can seeing Axl Rose up there, it's like, well, yeah, he can hit the notes, he's got the gravelly sound, he's got a lot of rock authenticity and credentials to his own, in his own right. So it's kind of yeah, it's incredible to see like a great band like ACDC with such a imprint on you know modern culture and rock and roll to like survive and to put on a great show with another singer. I mean, they replaced Bon Scott. They've been there before, so you can't be a Puritan about things. So
You're
yeah,
right.
I think that's really well.
You're right. And as we mentioned, some of the singers you were inspired by was you and Axel are different in some ways,
Mm.
obviously vocally. But was he one? Did he inspire you at all? Because you mentioned David Lee Roth, you mentioned Paul Stanley. Do you remember the first time perhaps you heard Appetite? Where you were?
Um, Well, there is one song that we have called White Unicorn. And I had another vocal in the early days when I wrote that song. I thought, what if I just like, I think I might have actually thought, what if I sing this like Axl Rose, inject that melody. Um, so I did, yeah. I think I was possibly inspired by Axl Rose to put that kind of melodic structure with those because I think there is a sort of there is a romantic quality to Guns N' Roses. I know there's a lot of like tough bravado, but there is like a sort of hang out with your mates with a case of beer and get an acoustic out and sing something with a I don't know, like it's like a ballad, and we supported the old Guns N' Roses Incarnate, the version without Slash, and that version in Serbia,
Wow.
and
How was that experience in Serbia of all places?
yeah, well, when we turned up to the festival, it had like no firearms, no Nazis, no like knives. This sign, and you go. So like it was someone like, oh damn, got to put my explosives and knives and my Nazi swastika away. Like, it's like what kind of festival are we going to here? But um, but I mean, what hit me that night when I saw, uh, you know, oh, I got a funny story about that. We um we did a cover of Another Brick on the Wall. We worked that into White Unicorn, and we had the whole crowd singing along to Another Brick on the Wall. And then Axl Rose, like he turned up like an hour or two late for his gig. He gets on the stage and he does a cover of Another Brick on the Wall after the whole he didn't see our gig. So it was like, yeah. So that night the crowd got two bands playing Another Brick on the Wall.
That's right. They used to cover that. That's really funny.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought it was a great show. I mean, I think having a Slash back in the mix, of course, he's brought what he does back to the band, and that that is what it is. Like you can't, he's got a signature style that kind of drives that band.
That is true. I got to see the version that you played with, not in you know in countries where Nazis aren't allowed, but I saw the Buckethead Ashba version, and I finally got to see the Slash version for the first time
Yeah,
when they reunited, and yeah, it's a certain vibe that you just didn't get before. And
yeah,
I
he drives it with that.
yeah.
Yeah, you hear it. It's more obviously guitar driven. It's got the grit, the dirt, and of course the virtuosity that he has. With it, but that wasn't what really struck me. Just seeing Guns N' Roses with Slashback, it was more just like the kind of drive and the solid riffs and yeah. Um, but they've got that kind of pop element too, don't they? With all their the poppy kind of things, like some of those songs off the second, what was it, Chinese Democracy. Have they still have that in the set list, and it's very like
Did you like
that
that album?
that's a whole nother thing in itself. So yeah.
Did you like that album, Chinese Democracy?
uh how can I what can you say about that one? It's I'll have to have another listen to it, but um what do I actually think? Well, there's one song that's kind of, it's got this like Pavarotti kind of element to it that I can't remember
This
what
this I
it's
love.
called.
This I love.
Is
Is
that
is
the one?
is because
Yeah.
that's the one that he sings like Pavarotti, I guess, because that
Yeah.
starts as a very solo ballad. There's no music. The instrumentals don't kick in for a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I think when that record came out, it's just so shrouded in publicity that it's even hard to know what the record sounds like because your opinions are tainted by. And I mean, it's pretty amazing that like that was another decade, wasn't it? That was like, that's almost like the Beatles putting out a record in the 80s or something and just
I like that
like,
analogy. That's funny.
yeah,
Do
it,
you
it
do you look at Axel? Like, do you understand? You mentioned it before as somebody who has gone through lineup changes. Do you
mm,
appreciate, I guess, what he had to go through to keep the name? I
yeah.
guess, do you ever look at him and be like, what if he just called it Axel? But you're doing with Wolfmother, it's your thing. So I respect that. So it's like, do you look at Axel kind of the same way?
Yeah, well, being nobody wants to be the guy who has to, yeah, tell anyone what to do, in a band. Like, this is the song, this is what we're doing, this is like, we all like to think that it's like, it's all random and chaos and we're all just having fun and we're all getting wasted and it all just came out of a jam and that's like what I think what you tell the public to make it all sound like fun and friendly and cool. But like someone's like, hey, do you want to do a rehearsal? Do you want to do a tour? Do you want to like play these songs? And you know, and if you go for a long period of time, people uh, find it challenging or to kind of to work together as a unit and function over a long period of time. It's not for everyone, And I think the old perception is like, oh, okay, oh mate, Ringo's quit, the band's over, we're gonna have to call it something else, we're gonna have to write a new record and start from scratch. But I guess the new model that's happened, 50 years down the track in rock and roll is like, oh, maybe we could replace that guy and keep going and make another record and build, and are we being controlled by someone who quits or are we being controlled by someone who keeps going? It's like, or some like, it's like, where does who's the better person and who's doing the right thing and where does the power lie and what do we adhere to someone's, what someone wants to do? So I think, bands like AC/DC or, even, Axl Rose or what other bands have had, sometimes, it's like the weakness can be a greatest strength as well. Like maybe, I mean, I look back at festivals that I played in 2000 and I look at the lineup of the festival and like, man, all those bands don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
all gone. And, so sometimes it's good to cop all that flack and keep going because like you're fighting for your own survival, out there in the landscape of music. And look, if you like get your family, your wife and kids or your fiance or whatever, you fly to Jakarta with your crew. Now you want people to be there, like you've outlaid X amount of dollars, flights, accommodation, visas, rehearsals, the whole thing. You get there, you want people to be there. And sometimes like, man, it's like you put Wolfmother on there and it's like, it's going to cover your expenses and you get to play rock and roll. You put your own name on there and people don't know who you are. I mean, unless you're Rod Stewart and Bob Dylan and um, you know,
I know
uh,
I know what you mean.
yeah,
It's a branding thing. I do get it. Not everyone likes it, but I think as long
mm,
as the you made an interesting point where just because somebody else quits, should that be on me? Should that stop me? So I appreciate you going forward. I think all Wolfmother fans have appreciated you carrying that flag. As somebody who found you when I was in college in the early
yeah,
2000s, so I remember that first Wolfmother record, and that you're still doing stuff today, and you're about to put out a new record. I mean, I'm
yeah,
glad that nobody stopped that. I'm glad you're, obviously. And one of the things I want to mention before
yeah,
we end, because as I mentioned, I have fans in Australia. You're doing stuff with Primus soon, right?
yeah.
So what do you?
That we couldn't get like, I mean, we had to get. It was a bit risky because, like, to come back to Australia, you've got to quarantine to get back, and at the time, there's like a backlog of people waiting to get into quarantine to come back, so you could actually be stuck waiting at LAX for a couple of months or whatever to get a quarantine hotel to come back. So I have, like, people in the band with like kids, and it was just too much for us to put people out that much to get over. I don't think it was the right time for Wolfmother to be touring at that time. So we're not on that Primus tour, but
Okay.
um, yeah, it's funny how you're saying about, like, you know calling it a day when people quit, or or when you don't want to do it or whatever. But, like, I remember this journalist was, like, talking to me a lot about people changing and this, that, the other, and she was like, oh, I remember seeing you at this when we headlined Splendor in the Grass. And I thought, wow, if I didn't put together another band and put out another record, you would never have seen Wolfmother. But you don't know that because you never saw because you're too young to have even been around when the first lineup was there. But so it's kind of like glass half empty, half full. Like,
How you look at it?
okay, how do you see this? But
You're right.
on the same token, man, I do solo shows as well. I go out there as Andrew Stockdale, and I come back from, like, American tours and play to, like, smaller crowds solo. Or sometimes I take a band and I actually run at a loss. Like, I spend the money that I make from Wolfmother.
Huh.
I come back and go on tour as Andrew Stockdale and lose, play for nothing and actually lose it because I think, well, it's fun. I like doing what I do anyway.
Wow.
But I gotta make a living, so I still kind of, you know, I
I
have to kind of make it work on one hand, but also I don't mind doing it for nothing as well. Yeah.
I get it. And I think from the get-go, I could tell your passion for what you do, the industry. This was such a pleasurable experience to talk to you, Andrew. Obviously, I've been
Yeah.
listening to your music for so long, and when the world gets back to normal-ish,
Yeah.
whether it's just Andrew Stockdale solo or with Wolfmother, when you
Yeah.
come to New York, I can't wait to see you. And to
Yeah.
hear new Wolfmother tunes.
Well,
This was just a lot
look
of fun.
forward to shaking your hand and saying hi at what, a Irving Plaza or something, doing a gig.
Yeah, see, you can name drop some on New York clubs. You got it.
Yeah,
Aw-
yeah.
Awesome, Andrew. Thank you so much for your time. I hope we get to do this again.
Yeah, pleasure. Thanks for reaching out, and yeah, great to chat. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you over in the States
You
in
got it.
the not too distant future.
You got it. So that does it for this episode of Appetite for Distortion. What a cool dude. You just never know. Like I say this, I get nervous before interviews, so I'm never gonna be too cool for that. I don't know. Something about it's like, is he gonna be a fun, friendly guy? What kind of short answers? Or what is it gonna be? No, nothing like that from the get go. And I know some of you have asked, and maybe if I get him on again, I'll ask him. But he's already answered this about Mike Patton. It was years ago. Mike Patton from Faith No More. He was being interviewed at a festival, and Wolfmother was on, and Mike Patton said that they sucked. And Andrew was asked about that years ago, and he took the high road with an answer. So I know some of you wanted me to ask him about that, but he's answered it. It just didn't come up organically. But that was, some cool stuff about Slash and Axel. And you never know how a true Aussie looks at AC/DC. Is it sacrilege to replace? But as he mentioned, you replace, Bon Scott, but Bon Scott died. So I guess that's a different story. It's a different story. Look at me ending episodes awkwardly, as I always do. So thanks again for hanging out in another episode of Appetite for Distortion. Follow, subscribe, however you listen. If you're watching this on YouTube, thanks. I'm loving to see these subscribers go up, because if these subscribers go up, I could potentially make a few more cents off of YouTube, and they don't need all that money. And however you listen, if it's just on the podcast platforms, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Podbean, I forget where. We're everywhere. Wherever you listen to podcasts is what they say. Just hit the like and subscribe button, because those numbers go up too, and that's how we get our guests. They will look at. I will put in my initial email. I'll put a link to, usually iHeart, and they'll see all the guests that we've had. And whoa, that's pretty big. It's some of the guests. Obviously now Andrew Stockdale, or we had Dave Mustaine, or Pauly Shore, Matt Sorum, which, by the way, I forget if I've mentioned this on the podcast. That is, I think I did. We scheduled to next year at some point. His book is being delayed again. I don't know why. That's all I know. But I've had Matt Sorum on before. But then they also, after that, they look at social media. How many followers do you have? So that's also a nice reminder to please follow my new Twitter at the AFD podcast. Because God forbid I shared my own Guns N' Roses concert videos that got me suspended. Although if you follow on Facebook and Instagram, you get to see some videos of Hard School that I took. Everyone's sharing videos, their own videos. They're not for sale. Whatever. I'm getting off on a tangent. So if you, as today, I recorded this the same day as I recorded the Mark Cantor interview. So Twitter was the only safe haven today, as Instagram and Facebook were down, and my numbers on there are higher. So get it. Let's bring Twitter up to where Instagram and Facebook are. If you can help me out with that, I would appreciate it. Thanks. So that again does it for this episode. What is to come? Well, Michael Ryan, who wrote the Scooby-Doo episode with Axl Rose, making that happen too. I love it. These current episodes are ones that I've been working on for months and playing email tag or following up on a no answer. You get a, this happens sometimes. You get a yes, and then it's just radio silence. It's like when you ask a girl out, or at least what I remember. It's like, what did I do wrong? It's like, what happened? I thought we really connected on Tinder. But that's okay. Things are the way they are now for a reason, aren't they? So again, I'm desperately asking for your help out of said desperation. Oh, and also you can buy t-shirts and stuff on Redbubble. That's another way to support the podcast. Wherever you go, I was wearing mine at all the Guns N' Roses shows because I'm a shameless self-promoter, as you are able to tell right now. After that, I think next week we'll probably do a tour review episode to get a few fans on there for you to talk about the tour that was, maybe talk about what we hope to see in the future from Guns N' Roses. And after that, I just don't know. So again, the best way to find out about all the guests, all the upcoming episodes, to even take part in them, to ask questions, to be a co-host, follow on social media, especially Twitter. One last plug for the new Twitter at the AFD podcast. Okay, so that does it for this episode. When will you see the next one? The words of Axl Rose concerning Chinese democracy. You'll see it, I don't know if soon is the word,